November 4th, 2024 meeting minutes.
Have a motion? I need a second.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
I gotta test it before I give it to you.
Any opposed, like sign? I need an approval of the agenda for tonight.
Mr. Mayor, do we need to reverse the order of those items?
No, it's suggested by Attorney Clay Martin that we need the money in place if we decide to move forward with the second one. So to leave it as is.
Move to approve agenda.
Second.
Motion and a second. Any discussion? Hearing none. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, like sign? There we go. All right, we'll move on to public participation. This is CRA.
So Brian,
The CRA
I
meeting.
had to flip it again.
Mr. Warren, did you intend to speak at the CRA?
He just said,
That's-
keep the agenda as is. So I had to put the
Okay.
other.
All right, moving on from public participation, we'll go to the resolutions. We'll start with number 2. This is CRA resolution number 2025-01. Mr. Martin, will you please read that by title?
So, Mr. Mayor, council members, or CRA board members, and Mr. CRA Chair, you have before you CRA resolution number 2025-01, a resolution of the Community Redevelopment Agency of the City of Lake City, Florida, amending the CRA component of the city budget for the fiscal year beginning October 1st, 2024, and continuing through September 30th, 2025, by appropriating an amount not to exceed $166,000 and no $100s for preparation and development of a new CRA redevelopment plan and findings of necessity to expand the CRA boundary. Making certain findings of fact in support of the CRA amending said budget, directing the city clerk to forward this resolution to the city council for due consideration and further ratification, repealing all prior resolutions in conflict and providing for an effective date.
Okay, we'll go ahead and open up public comment on this one. Mr. Warren?
Mayor, if you, were you doing a presentation? I thought we were going, a slideshow was.
We'll do it on the next one. On the next item, that goes with the next item.
Okay.
I'm confused.
So number 2, if I understand it correctly, and is asking for $166,000 to be amended out of the CRA. Is that going to come out of the actually current? It's coming out of the city budget or the CRA? You shook your head.
CRA budget.
The
CRA budget.
right, which is the one that has the 700-some thousand that's currently in it.
I don't think that's the balance, but I think you can address that afterwards.
That was the balance when I did the public records.
Well, hold on. Do you have any contingent questions?
Yeah, I'm trying to understand where we're getting them. I'm a taxpayer, so I'm trying to understand where we're getting the money from, what budget are we amending, what is it coming out of, what part, and things of that nature. So that wasn't addressed in the backup material that I saw. Correct me if I'm wrong. The source.
We'll have that answered after. Do you have any other questions?
Yeah, and so if that's the case, I just want to kind of know where the money is coming from. Is it coming out of that pot of money, or is it coming out of another source of money? And then I guess the presentation is going to tell us what the $66,000 is going to be used for. And we will have a chance to speak to that proposition, yes or no? Thanks.
Thank you, Mr. Warren. Mr. Thomas, would you like to speak to that real fast?
Yes, Mr. Chair, it is coming out of the CRA budget. The $166,000, because the project itself is going to cross over into the next fiscal year. The idea is we approve it for this fiscal year, but half of it will be paid out of this fiscal year, half will be paid out of the other fiscal year. And if you want to advance the slide a little bit, there's the request is to move it out of undesignated projects budget into the professional services budget. So out of capital outlay infrastructure under undesignated projects and into the operating expense for professional services.
Thank you, Mr. Thomas. All right. Mr. Bowden, you also had number 2 designated?
Yeah, I guess I'm confused. I want to speak to number 2, but I want to speak to it after I see what you're talking about.
So number 2, the item that we're on is just to move the money within the CRA budget to achieve the second item. So we'll have a presentation on the second item in just a moment.
I think I'm going to speak to that.
Okay, so you want number 3, okay, thank you. Right. Okay. Have public comment. Would anybody like to make a motion to progress number 2?
Move to approve CRA resolution 2025-01.
Second.
A motion and a second. Any further discussion? Ms. Sykes, will you please call the roll?
Mr. Carter?
Yay.
Ms. Young? Mr. Cardigan?
Yes.
Ms. Harris?
Yes.
Chairman Walker?
Yes. Right. Now we'll move on to number 3. And we'll have our presentation. Mr. Thomas?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'll be brief. So the background is the Lake City CRA plan hasn't been updated since 2011. Since that time, of course, there have been a lot of changes to the economic environment in the CRA area, not least of which is, of course, the closure of Shands Hospital. A significant portion of the CRA plan was based on the presence of that hospital and the expansion of healthcare services around it. And that's really no longer an option, even with the proposal that's going forward. It's not a practical consideration. So a significant portion of the CRA plan has changed in terms of the type of businesses that we're pursuing. Of course, there's been impacts to local businesses due to COVID and shifting trends away from retail. You know, the big push in CRAs used to be retail, but because the retail environment overall has changed so much, that needs to be reevaluated. And of course, we've had a substantial reduction in available workforce housing, which is a big issue. And so the current CRA plan, we believe, needs to be significantly updated, overhauled, and then also to account for the current economic environment, of course, and then also like to propose expanding the boundaries a little bit, about 0.8 of a mile total, some on the east side, some on the west side. And the west side would go all the way over to Young's Park, and there's a map to follow up here shortly. Staff identified Inspire Placemaking Collective as vendor of choice. I was actually working with them to come to a previous jurisdiction, but they've also worked with a lot of CRAs around the state. They're Florida-based, they're Florida-focused, which is, I think, important to understand Florida community redevelopment agencies. They've won awards from the Florida Redevelopment Association a number of years for their work around the state. Most recently in 2024 for the St. Augustine West City CRA Finding a Necessity. Going through procurement, just to assure everybody, they have worked with a number of communities around the state, and so we were able to what's called piggyback off of an existing contract for essentially the same services for another community. So they provide the same service, they provide it at the same cost, and that allows us, because that was competitively bid, it allows us to use that contract to what they call piggyback. And so basically, it's allowable in our procurement policies, and it allows us to sort of jumpstart the work because we don't have to go through multiple months of bidding process. City of Sebastian was the community that most closely mirrored what we were looking to do, and so therefore, like I said, to kind of get a jumpstart going, we're requesting that we go ahead and do the procurement as allowed by our code. So the sort of dark yellow areas to the left and to the right demonstrate the proposed area for expansion. Like I said, on the west side there, goes all the way to Young's Park on the west. It's about 3/10 of a mile, square mile. And then on the eastern side, it would take in about another half a square mile of area. Honestly, there's a lot of areas in Lake City that could be added to it, but this keeps it at about probably little less than 2 square miles total. And so therefore, staff recommends that the CRA board approve the agreement with Inspire Placemaking Collective and approve CRA resolution 2025-02.
Thank you, Mr. Thomas. Does anybody on the dais have questions before we move to public comment?
Mr. Mayor, I have a quick question. Is there any, any likelihood of any kind of issues? I see a good portion of the eastern expansion seems to encapsulate the Lake Isabella historic residential area. Would this be a benefit to that? Is there any kind of clashing with that?
There would not be any kind of a clash. Obviously actually the part of Lake Isabella is already in it. The neighborhood sort of on the western side of that area, that historic district is in it. This would just basically potentially provide additional opportunities for revenue if we do have a residential facade grant program that's part of the CRA. Anticipate still having that when we update the CRA, as well as commercial facade grants. That general area could certainly benefit from that. It also allows some funding for infrastructure if we have infrastructure needs potentially. And so I do not believe there would be any kind of a clash. And that particular lake, if I'm not mistaken, has the way the ownership goes around it. The city, I think, owns the core of the lake, but they own at least the edge of the lake. And so it wouldn't affect anything as far as the ownership or the use of the private use of that land. It would remain as it is now.
With the CRA programming in that area, would that even perhaps increase abilities for, because I know in the historic district, a lot of times folks have a bit of a higher standard for their facades and things like that. Would there be an opportunity for additional assistance when paying for specific things required by the current regulation?
Potentially, depends on what the outcome of the updated CRA plan is. The kind of the golden rule of CRAs is you can only do what's in your plan. And so if that was something that the board, working with Inspire, wants to become a part of it, it certainly could be. It just depends. Like I said, it's what the board wants included in the updated plan. And that then, if it's in the plan, it can be funded.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Okay. All right, now we'll move on to public comment. We'll begin with you, Mr. Bradley.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. It's Councilor Glenn Albaugh, 1156 Northeast Bastrop Norris Drive. I'm going to go to the history, but let me just say this. The expansion of CRA in and of itself is not a bad idea. It's really not. If you can expand it, you can affect more people, do more good. However, I am concerned that by the expansion, that in the new project does not take precedent over what's needed in the present CRA plan that exists today. If we get into rehabbing houses or tearing down dilapidated houses, I'm of the opinion that those houses that's in the present plan should have some priority over those that's coming in as a result of the expansion, if it ever making sense. That by expanding the plan, and you go into an area, just going west, for example, there's several dilapidated houses already in the proposed coming up plan. But there's a number of dilapidated houses already in the CRA plan where I live in. And so when it comes down to making a decision in terms of how you're going to spend the money, I'm suggesting to y'all that those of us who live in the plan now, those communities that's in the plan now, should have priority over those that's coming in after, if the expansion goes into effect. The other point I want to make out, in the past, Mayor, we have an advisory board, CRA advisory board, and I thought it made a lot of sense because the citizen was involved. They make a recommendation. The city council still would serve at this board, but is there any intention to bring that board back, or are you not going to have an advisory board going forward? There was a citizen advisory board called a Citizen Community Advisory Board.
Do you have any? Well, I'll answer that. Do you have any contingency question?
No. I just want to make the point about the expansion of the funds as we go forward. That there would be unfair to those those who got property in the present plan, to skip over them and deal with somebody that's coming into the plan. I'm not opposed to expanding at all. It makes sense to me.
I remember the advisory board, I think that it worked really well back whenever it was there, so it's something that we'll definitely explore.
You said it worked really bad.
Say that again?
What did you say?
So I remember when it was in place before, and I think it worked really well, so I'm in favor of bringing it back
Yeah,
myself, but.
and I say that because I think that the more citizen participation you got in these kind of things, the better it serves the community, you know? And then you can get, because you're gonna have a final say so anyway, at the end of the day. All right, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Brandon. All right, Mr. Warden.
So I'm gonna be the first to say, out of 411 cities, I think, correct me if I'm wrong, in the state of Florida, the state legislature have really beat up on the whole CRA concept over the past. And so it's glad to see the CRA finally getting some initiatives and some traction and some growth. And I can't blame the staff and administration for wanting to expand these districts because one is it's going to add benefit tax base wise, and we're going to get revenue from it. I think that's one of the key pieces about it. I like about the CRA that there's direct money that comes to the city. Also, as I was reading the backup material, one of the things that was emphasized on, and I don't know whether or not this is going to be something that the body itself is going to actually make a part of the plan, which I would hope so, because it's in the backup material, is that blight is one of the main reasons of wanting to expand this thing and wanting to do things as far as expand the CRA. And I'm quite sure there's other concepts and ideals. But here's what I want to make sure, and like Mr. Brown, I want to be clear that in 2011, you all amended, when I say you all, meaning the city, not you all currently up there, amended the CRA, right, to include the northeast side of the community. And in that plan, maybe here recently, but not as of late, there's been money, and none of that money has not proportionally been spent to do the job in the CRA. The CRA, in my opinion, should look uniformed. Right, just like downtown should look uniform, the CRA should look uniform. So it shouldn't be the CRA looks nice in front of the courthouse and around City Hall, and then when you get across the tracks and it's a part of the CRA, it gets no funding, and it looks like, you know, a bomb just got dropped on it from either Russia or Ukraine or wherever those places is firing bombs right now, Gaza, whatever you want to call them. So, but in that, it's a great thing. I want to see it happen. I just don't want to see the potential loss in it. I think public input is important. I think in anything you do moving forward, when you're talking about making a plan for the city, right? You're not making a plan for yourself, you're making a plan for citizens, so you need citizens' input as to how they would look, the plan to actually look in that area. And get rid of them goddamn blighted houses. Can we get rid of them blighted houses? That is the most, is anybody doing anything about that? We gotta get rid, spend the money, $700-some thousand in there, get rid of them blighted house. And you know ain't no bathroom over there at Lake Isabel. I had to pee, me and my Down syndrome sister had to pee, I got some property over there. Ain't no bathroom over there, that ain't good. I think we should take some of that money and put it over there. You know ain't no bathroom, what you gonna do when you gotta take a leak? You ever been over there and take a leak? That is a pain, and I got my Down syndrome sister when she got pampered. That wasn't cool. All right, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Warren. Right. Do we have any more board discussion on this?
I have a question for
Yeah, just a moment. You have a question? You have
He's
more?
over the
Yep.
CRA. Mr. Bowden proposed a question about who would get priority. Will it be the ones that's already been in that vicinity? Or will it just be handpicked?
Again, depending on what's in the adopted plan, once it's updated, would sort of determine that, but usually it's based on needs-based over priority, although I don't see any reason why you couldn't put a caveat in there that these certain areas that have been there longer would give preference over the newer areas that are brought in. It's, again, if it's in the plan, it's usually allowable, so.
Well,
And I apologize, I wanted to let you know that the representative from the company is here if you had any specific questions for Inspire. I apologize, I forgot to introduce George Kramer.
Thank you.
Is that a question he needs to answer?
No, ma'am.
Or your,
It really, it's all gonna be on what the board chooses to put in the plan. And of course, there's also gonna be a lot of opportunity for community input as well.
so I'm just gonna say, I think it would be wise if some people already been waiting to get stuff done first. I think theirs should be done first, and then the new areas that are added, then them.
Anybody have any specific questions for Mr. Thomas or Mr. Kramer? Anybody like to entertain a motion to approve CRA resolution number 2025-02?
Mr. Mayor, move to approve CRA Resolution 2025-02.
A motion and a second. Any further discussion? Hearing none, Ms. Sykes, please call the roll.
Mr. Carter?
Yay.
Ms. Young? Mr. Birmingham?
Yes.
Ms. Harris?
Yes.
Chairman Walker?
Yes. All right, that concludes all of our items on this agenda, so I will